All right, today I'm going to show you real quick how to get prepped for a tournament. We're going to go do some tournament practice tonight, do a little 3-hour challenge. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to rig up and give you my thoughts behind them. So here we go. So we know they're shallow. It's pre-spawn spawn time right now. Water's like 65 degrees where we're going. For me, that always means a jig under a dock. So a jig under a dock is going to be probably my go-to. Black, blue, green pumpkin. This is 1/4 ounce. I'm throwing this on my DX 704 Dobyns Champion Extreme. Not sponsored by Dobyns, but I do love them. They did just get bought out by a big company, which is scary, but the company has said that they're going to follow Gary's guidelines and do what he's been doing. The biggest thing for me is the warranty. If I break this in my truck, I send in this piece that says it's a Dobyns DX 704, and I pay a replacement fee, a fraction of the cost, and they send me a brand new rod. So they will always have my business as long as that's happening. Again, not sponsored, but I do love the Dobyns rods. So all my rods are going to be Dobyns. It's a DX 704, which is a heavy fast. It's for the smaller jig. I have a 705 that is a mag heavy for my 1/2 ounce jigs and that. But skipping around docks, this thing's a dream. This is a jig that I poured and tied. That's a trailer that we poured. So we'll get a video out where you can see that. But that's the first thing I'm going to do. If I'm prepping for a tournament, which I'm kind of going to act like I am, even though I'm not, I'm going to retie. I'm going to retie everything. Everything's going to be as pristine as I can get it. I don't need to be breaking off or anything like that in the tournament. That's upsetting. So I'm going to retie all these. And the idea is going to be to not lose any fish tonight. Fish efficiently. So that's first one. 1/4 ounce jig, black, blue, green pumpkin combo, which is good in any watercolor, in my opinion. So that's probably going to be where I start. This will probably be the very first pull in my hand today. Because if I can get bit on this, I generally know it's going to be a little bit bigger fish. I don't know why that is, but jigs get bigs, and that's just how it is. So that's pull number 1. All right, pull number 2. Which will be kind of used in the same places around docks and what have you, is going to be that pig pole, assuming that name sticks. Basically our stick bait, wacky rigged with a 1/0 or size 1 Gamakatsu worm hook right through the middle. This is 8-pound fluoro, 10-pound braid. This is on my Dobyns Caden 712 SF, which is a medium light fast action. It's an exposed hook. That's why the medium light's okay. If you can see, I'll try and show you the rod tip. Bends at the top third. You can see that down about 4 eyes. So that's about a third of the rod tip or a third bend. They call that a 70-30 blank. Some will bend even, they'll be even faster, and they'll bend at the top 2 or 3. That's like an 80-20 or a 90-10. Those are extremely quick blanks, and what they do is you don't have to lift as far to move the bait as far. So there's some more give with this. 70-30 is my preference. I will retie this too. Actually, I'm not going to retie this. I can retie this out on the lake. You guys know how I'm going to retie all these. So that's my number 2 wacky Senko or wacky pig pole. And we're going to skip it under docks, skip it around trees and brush, anything overhanging and overlaying, and anywhere I can get away with that exposed hook. This thing's killer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it flutter to the bottom. So give it a few seconds, watching my line the whole time. Once I get to the bottom, I'm either going to pull up slowly, bring it 2 or 3 feet off the bottom. Again, watching my line the whole time, and let it sink back down. Or I'm going to pop it a couple times and then let it sink back down. And basically do that a few times in your target area, and then reel it in and cast again. So that's number 2. Those two kind of work hand in hand. If I get bit on the jig and I don't hook up, I'm going to follow up with that Senko as well. We're a little bit early for this, but because we already caught a fish on it, I know the grass is up on the lake that we're going to. The other day I lost 2 on the frog, and found out the reason. I did catch one, but I lost 2. Found out the reason I lost those 2 was it was the first time I used this reel after cleaning it for the winter. I never tightened my drag down, so I didn't get a good hook in those fish. So make sure your drag is tight especially if you're going frog fishing. I'm gonna retie this because I don't think I've retied this since early this spring either. This is Cadence 715. So that's a mag heavy, fast action. And I've got 50-pound Power Pro braid in the moss green. I'm going to tie a Palomar. Anytime I tie braid, I'm tying a Palomar knot. Check out the knot video I did on how that works. And the reason I tie a Palomar is I trust it not to slip. I do leave a little bit of a tag end on that. It's not going to bother. I leave like that much tag end. That's not going to bother anything. And if it does slip, it's surely not going to slip an inch. So that's fine. Retied there, ready to go. Frog's perfect around the docks, but specifically where there is a bunch of weeds and grass matted up on the top, I can fish it right over that. In the holes in the grass, that's going to be my prime targets, is any holes in the grass. I'm going to put that in there, and this and the jig are my 2 favorites for catching big fish. Our goal is to catch 5 big ones in any tournament, so those 2 will always be on my deck in every one of the tournaments. The Senko, or the pig pole, I keep calling it a Senko. Basically, it's a stick bait. Senko is the one that originated the stick bait. So the pig pole will always, those 3 rods that I just showed you will always be on my deck for every tournament. Next one that will be is a drop shot, if I can find it. That will always be on my deck for a tournament. So basically we got the jig, this pig pole, the frog, and the drop shot. 2 more things. So we're going to have a Texas rig, and we're going to have some sort of a moving bait, and then I'll probably tie the big glide on, as if we get 5 and we just need 1 big kicker fish. So Another pig pole. Another 4-power rod. So this is a Kadon 714. 4-power is a heavy fast. This is a 3/16 ounce bullet weight, tungsten. And this is I think this is a 4/0 EWG with the pig pole, black and blue. I just tied this, so I'm not going to mess with this. You guys have seen me catch fish on this. This Texas rig, like the Drop Shot, you can put 100,000 different, any bait, any soft plastic bait you want, you can put on either one of those. So we'll have a Texas rig, a Drop Shot out. I'm going to tie this up just because it might be time. I'm going to put a popper on. This is a jerk bait. This is on my Kadon 610 C4 or CB. So CB stands for crankbait. What that means is it's a much more parabolic bend than just your C's, which are casting. So big difference when you're buying a rod. Anytime you're using a treble hook bait, you want a crankbait rod. And let me show you the difference here if I can. So I don't know how well this will show. See how that bends? It's like a 60-40, very parabolic. So when you set the hook, there's a lot of give there. And the reason you do that with the treble hooks and not the single hooks is if a fish comes up, jumps, and there's a treble hook, you want that extra forgiveness on the crankbait rod to just so it doesn't go flying out. If you use the same rod with a single hook, that forgiveness, that extra parabolic bend, you've got to go a lot farther to get the hook past the barb. So when you're using, so that was a CB, 4-power CB. This is a 4-power casting. It's a little bit longer, so it's going to be harder to show you, but it's like an 80-20, 70-30. It's much stiffer. It gets to the blank a lot faster. So that's good for driving home the big hooks. So we might dig into that later, but for this video on a treble hook bait, you want a crankbait rod. My favorite is the 610 4 CB. Crankbait rod, treble hooks. See that hook? Treble, 3 hooks, 2, 3 hooks. That's a feathered treble. And then single hook. This one you're going to use a C. If you're using Dobbins rods, you're going to use something that ends in a C. The thicker the diameter hook, the heavier the power. So 704 or 705. Same kind of goes with the treble hooks. This 610 4 CB is an excellent crankbait rod. I love it for poppers, small crankbaits, walking baits. I use it for a lot of things. I'm actually probably going to get a second 610 4 CB in the Kadon. I absolutely love the rod. So, popper, again around docks. If you get a swirl on one of these and the fish doesn't commit, and you throw it back in and the fish still isn't coming, follow it up with that stick bait or that pig pole, and chances are he'll hit. moving bait. That is just a paddle tail swim bait, 3/8 ounce head. This is just a chuck and wind cover water bait. This is on a Sierra 703. The Sierra lineup is more parabolic than the Kaden lineup. It's better for moving baits. So I will either have this or a chatterbait or a spinner bait, something where I can just cover some water. But today I'm going to go with just the paddle tail, at least at the beginning. All this is subject to change once we get fishing. The idea is hopefully we can narrow it down to using just 1 or 2 of these rods. I got a bunch of nicks in that line, but it doesn't always work that way. That's why we start with so many. Your wife, my wife, whoever's wife will probably say, why do you need so many rods? You don't need it, but if I had to tie up 7 different things every, I don't know, you try it for 10 minutes, it doesn't work, you want to try something different, this way I can just pick up a different rod. Alright, so we got moving bait, we got a couple bottom baits, we got a 2 top water baits. Last but not least is the big fish bait. It's kind of all the craze right now, and that's a big glide. Right now on my big rod I've got our swim bait on an 8/0 hook, 7/0 hook, weighted swim bait, but we're going to do the 7-inch bluegill glide bait. This is on a very specialized rod. This is basically for throwing heavy baits, 3 to 5, I think. I don't know, 1 ounce to 5 ounces. So that's a very heavy lure. Therefore, you need a very heavy rod. 795. That means 7'9", 5-power rod. And yeah. It's the first year I've even thrown a glide really for any significant period of time anyway. Part of that's because I haven't had the right rod. Part of that is because I'm not very confident in it. But I do know it will catch a big fish if needed. So that's the lineup. Probably going to start, like I said, with the 3/8 ounce jig or 1/4 ounce jig under the docks with the stick bait pig pole in the same places. If that doesn't work, we'll chuck and wind a little bit the spinner bait. We'll try some top water, but that's where I would start. That's what, 8 rods for 7 rods? 7 or 8 rods that I've got tied up. There's 3 or 4 in there in specialty circumstances. If none of this works, then we'll maybe try a jerk bait, or maybe try, what else is even in there? I don't know. If these 7 don't work, we're in deep